Welcome to Tiny Tutorials at Elizabeth & Co. Art Studio. Glad you could join us. So today we're going to be doing something super fun. It's adding gold leaf, and this is something I love to add to my mixed media pieces because it's just so fun and it's just a little something extra, and I really love to be extra. So we're going to use some gold leaf today. Now I'm going to set you up with the products, the supplies you might need to do this. First of all, you will need your gold leaf. So this is the gold leaf that I'll be using today. It's by Speedball. It's called Simple Leaf, and I'll explain that to you in a minute. It's a much improvement from the traditional gold leaf. The next thing you'll absolutely must have is sizing, or the adhesive that you put the gold leaf down with. Again, this is by Speedball. You can find either one of these in most art supply stores or order it online. And a couple of brushes. So I have a brush here that I like to use just to put the glue on. You're going to want something ratty that you won't use again for painting, so I use this every time. And then a brush for brushing away the gold leaf once it's adhered to the surface. Some people like to use a sponge style brush, just the black spongy brushes. I prefer, my tool of choice is just a very stiff bristled acrylic paintbrush. The other thing you're definitely going to need is a surface that you want to put the gold leaf on. So my surface today is typically my surface of choice, is an upcycled or recycled kitchen cabinet door. So it is definitely wooden. You can really gold leaf on pretty much anything. Canvas is certainly a suitable option for a surface for gold leafing. So today we're using wood. I like it because it's stiff and it's a very sturdy surface, and that's what we're going to use today. The other thing we're going to use today, instead of the traditional way of applying your sizing straight onto your surface with a paintbrush and then applying the gold leaf on top of that, I'm going to be using a stamp. So this is a stamp that we're going to use today. You can really use pretty much any stamp. This is a stamp that I ordered from rubbermoon.com. I love their stamp line. They have hundreds to choose from, but you can use pretty much any kind of stamp. So this one is just a stamp off the craft aisle at pretty much any craft store. So any kind of stamp will work with this technique. So the first thing we're going to do is take our stamp and apply the sizing. Now the way you want to do this is not too thickly, because you want the sizing to kind of be consistently applied across the surface of whatever you're working on. So in my case, the wooden surface. Now when it starts to puddle like that, I don't really want that, so I'm going to try and spread it out as thinly as possible across the surface, making sure I hit all the raised edges. So a little bit goes a long way. You do not need to keep dipping in, and I'm going to try and get those little puddles out of there by dragging my brush through them and moving that to other spaces. So when you first dip your brush in, it's got more sizing or adhesive on it, and it kind of pools. But we're going to try and spread it out as much as possible. Then the next thing we're going to do is turn the stamp over and apply it to the surface of the canvas or the wood or whatever you're working on. Now this, I'm going to try and do kind of an all-over pattern with this stamp as the background that I'm going to put on this surface before I paint my image on it. So we push down, making sure that all the surface of the stamp comes in contact with the surface of the board or the canvas or the wood. And then that needs to dry for a few minutes. So while that's drying, I'm going to rinse off my stamp because I don't like to let this adhesive dry on there. Actually, I'm going to try and do another press and see what happens. I'm not sure if that'll be enough on there still. And that's Roxy barking in the background. There's a little bit on there. So that'll dry pretty quickly. I'm going to rinse off my stamp and I'll be right back. Okay, so the way that we know that it is dry enough to start adding the gold leaf is that it becomes kind of dark. So everywhere that there's like a little puddle, I'm going to tap it to take that puddle away. You don't want to overdo that because then you'll start muddying up the design. But you also don't want any pools or puddles where the adhesive has not dried as evenly as all the others. So the way you can tell if it's actually dry enough to start adding the gold leaf is just touch it, and if it's tacky, then it's ready to do that. Apply the gold leaf. If it's still kind of wet and doesn't feel tacky to the touch, like the underside of a piece of tape, then it's not quite ready yet. So I'm gonna let this dry for just a few more minutes. Sometimes when I'm feeling a little impatient, I just get a hairdryer out. So let's see if we can speed it along. It doesn't take much to get it tacky enough, and you don't want to go too far because then it will be too dry and the gold leaf won't adhere. So this gold leaf, your traditional kind of gold leaf comes in between two sheets of kind of tissue paper, and it's just loose hanging out in between there. So when you would typically take this and put it down on there, you would kind of lose everything that didn't adhere, and it would kind of float off into the surrounding area, which is fun when you're sweeping up and trying to clean up. You have lots of gold flying around, but that leads to lots of waste. So this type of gold leaf, which is new to me, I don't know how long it's been on the market, but it is on kind of a waxy kind of paper, and it's adhesive on one side of the gold leaf, and so it's sticking to that and it doesn't fall off. And when you apply it, so I applied this piece over here just a little bit ago, and it leaves everything else. Instead of this being waste and going away, floating off around the studio, it stays on here and you can use it. So that's what we're gonna take advantage of right now. So what we're doing is laying our gold leaf right across the surface of the sizing. Then I'm going to rub that on there to make sure that all of it sticks where the sizing is and doesn't, I'm not pulling it right back up. And then I'm going to take another sheet and do it on the same spot that I just did down here. So I'm trying to be, trying to use as much of it as I can. We don't want that sizing to dry up or else it won't stick. So then what I'm going to do up here is pull this piece off, and it will stick everywhere that you had sizing and leave this. So normally that would be floating around my studio, but now I can use it on some smaller pieces later on. So what we're going to do is now take your stiff bristled brush and start brushing away everywhere that the sizing wasn't. Your gold leaf will come off. Everywhere that the sizing was on the stamp will accept the gold leaf. And it makes a fabulous accent. I'm using this as my background for the image that I'm going to paint on top of this. I haven't quite decided what that's going to be yet, but this is going to make a fabulous background. So you have to really apply some pressure here to get that gold leaf to pull away in the spaces where the sizing wasn't. And it leaves this really fun pattern. I'm going to pull this one up and you'll see how much is left on this side of the gold leaf, that will not be wasted. So we pressed that down really good, and we're going to pull up. So see all of this that I still can use later that I would not have been able to in a traditional gold leaf style where the paper was just loose. So again, it's sticking everywhere, but the sizing was on the surface and floating away where it wasn't. And again, applying pressure. Don't be afraid to give it a little muscle. And there you go. So we have the beginnings of a really fabulous pattern that's going to be covering this whole surface that will be a background for whatever image I'm getting ready to paint on here. So thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you learned a few things. Make sure to tune in next week for another tiny tutorial. I'm Beth Melton Seabrook with ElizabethandCoArt.com. You can find us on social media, Instagram at eandcoart, or Facebook, Elizabeth & Co Art. See ya!